I guess, a general enterprise search tool. And in a recent article, you said that enterprise search is broken, end quote. And you positioned Dropbox Dash as a tool that unlocks the critical first step in many intelligent workflows, which is universal search. Can you elaborate for us on why enterprise search is broken and how you've devised a solution with Dash?
If you're trying to find something at work right now, you're going to have to go to all these individual apps and they have their own search bar. You're going to have 12, 20 different search bars to potentially consider. And that is just kind of ridiculous. Each one of these apps, of course, have made our lives better for that particular area. But when you start to add it up, it's very, very broken. You might have those files in all these different places. And so universal search is a huge unlock to overall productivity in the workplace. That's kind of what we're trying to do. That's why we're saying the traditional enterprise search is broken. You do need this more universal search. And that's the context layer that we are trying to build for businesses.
You've described this solution as an AI teammate. And before we started recording, we were discussing a little bit. I didn't want to get into too much detail because I didn't want you to spoil it for me on air. But you were talking to me about multiplayer AI, which is a term that I've never heard before, and I spent a lot of time talking about AI. So is that related to this AI teammate idea? What is multiplayer AI?
So think about a lot of the AI tools you're using today. Maybe they're like different chatbots that you're trying to bring in and use your work content. They're kind of single player, I would say, right now. I might add a chat, and they spit back an answer. Great. Okay. That's great for me, but how is it better for my team, or how is it making me be more effective at work? And I do think that's sort of what might be changing in the future. The most effective AI, in our opinion, isn't just that personal assistant, it is that teammate. It's somebody that knows you, it knows your work, it knows your team. You really have to understand where you're sitting in the org. You sort of have to understand what projects that you're working on. And a lot of that ends up being on the data layer. When we bring in this various content from third parties, we're doing a lot of work to normalize it into, let's say, Markdown. Then we do some amount of more advanced content understanding. Imagine these are PDFs. You're going to have both text and images, figures, etc. We want to be able to extract that. You might see a bunch of images. If you're, again, more on the creative side, we need to understand what is in that image. How does it maybe connect with everything else, all the other docs? Of course, you have things like Slack and Teams, more short form messages coming in. And you really have to almost build a graph. You want to sort of understand, how are these things all connected? How are, the projects might have some meeting transcripts, might have some documents, and it's all connected to your teammates. It's all connected to people. So I think the first aspect of multiplayer AI really needs to understand you and your team, first and foremost, and all that kind of connected data. Then I think there's some really interesting, potentially more future-looking product use cases where can you actually be doing something a little bit more collaboratively. We have a product called Stacks, for example. And the idea here is you have content in all these disparate forms. And sometimes these are just URLs. Sometimes these are just tabs in your browser. And you want to kind of bring that together. Let's say you're working on a deck for the upcoming board meeting. Well, you're going to bring in URLs. There might be slide content. There might be PDFs. You want to kind of put that in one place. And then you want to go ahead and invite your team so that they kind of can collaboratively see that, share updates, comment on things, and ask chat for any sort of useful information from that. So that's kind of my take on multiplayer AI. I think it's both on that data layer and really understanding you and your team. And then on the application layer, I do think there's some interesting innovations that might come from companies like Dropbox, but others I think are starting to explore. How do you get multiple people to interact with these chat agents?